Okay, so I had the opportunity to read your book, and I thought it was amazing and inspirational.
Thank you.
And so can you tell me who or what inspired you to write your book and the process of writing it?
So first of all, hello everyone. Hi. Hi, my name is Marley Dias. Nice to meet you all. And when thinking about wanting to write a book, I had always been a person who loved reading. And to me, creative writing and generally writing was something that I liked to do, but I never felt really confident in. And I feel like through the campaign and being able to elevate the stories of other authors, I really felt as though I had a really important story to share, and I would be able to explain to girls like us why it's important for us to use our gifts and talents, and you like to dance, to use those things to make the world a better place. And for the process of writing the book, I was very lucky to be with Scholastic for this publication, and they've been able to help me very much in me sharing my ideas and why I wanted the book to be colorful and why I wanted it to have photos. And I wanted to be this very much a thing that kids would be drawn to and that kids would not feel bored immediately by reading it. I know a lot of the times, I really am a person who is an avid reader, but I really like pictures and books, and I don't want all my books to look exactly the same on my bookshelf. So I wanted to create something that would kind of solve the frustrations that I had, not only with just the writing material and the things that I wanted to share, but just the way it looked. Even those little tiny things I thought were really important. So obviously I got a lot of help from my mother in making sure that the things that I said were very clear and that they made sense for both parents and kids. But through the process, it's been a very tough process. I had to do it while I was getting my braids done. I had to reread the book while I was getting these twists done. So it's a lot of, just keep going back, keep working. And even though I get this question a lot, I don't feel like I make it even clearer that the dedication that it took for me and also for my entire community to understand that this project really needed to get done so I could share the stories of GrassROOTS and share the stories of how 1,000 Black Girl books came to be.
Yeah, it was a really nice book, and I'm sure the audience will love it too.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's talk about the birth of the 1,000 Black Girl Books campaign and what your first steps were.
So 1,000 Black Girl Books started in my 5th grade class when I was very, very interested in reading, and I always wanted to be very actively involved in what we were doing. But I noticed with all the books that I was reading, they had white boys and their dogs as the main character. And I really liked my class, and I really liked my teacher, and I liked my teacher's style, and I liked what he was talking about, but I felt as though the material that we read and the things that we were learning about did not include girls like me. But I got to see myself being reflected at home and in my personal library. So I knew in some way that these books existed, but they weren't being included in school because I had the opportunity to read them. And I knew a lot of kids who use school as a resource for books. They rely on their librarians and their teachers to, give them information about what's important and what they should be learning about and reading about and educating themselves on. But it seemed as though they only wanted us to learn about one experience. So I told my mom, and she was like, well, I can read whatever I want, Marley. It's not my problem. What are you going to do about it? So I decided that I was going to collect 1,000 books that had Black girls as the main characters and donate them to a school in Jamaica that my mother attended.
Wow, that's really, sorry. So I heard that, so when you were first starting, you said you wanted to collect 1,000 books starting in November 2015 to February 2016. So why did you pick such a big number, and how did you, 1,000 is a lot.
Yeah.
So how did you, think of that number, and how did you work towards getting that number?
Well, originally, before I had a lot of access to, being on these different shows and getting to meet all these people and talk about my campaign, the goal wasn't even, the physical goal is to always collect the certain amount of books and that number. But also the important part, especially that my mom liked to share with me, is that it was for me to get into the practice of learning how to speak my mind and learning how to present to others and learning how to tell people and not necessarily, enforce, but convince them that this cause is really important for Black girls and for other students and for other people. So even though 1,000 it just fit perfectly with the hashtag too, but on top of that, it was a goal that was to be met with the knowledge rather than the physical number. But now I can proudly say that we have collected 11,001, if you count my book, 11,001 Black girl books.
Wow. Thank you. So with your hashtag, how did you get it out to the world? And how did you release your message that you were collecting books and you needed some donations?
Well, originally, we had just used my mom's Instagram for her foundation, which I know we're going to go into further detail later, but we had used that Instagram to say, like, me just, holding the book, posing, smiling, and being like, oh, my daughter Marley, and a fellow Supergirl for GrassROOTS, is trying to collect these books. Please donate to here and here and here. And as much as a couple of people really gave all their books and all their time and all their energy online to helping me, there was a lot of people who didn't. And I had 200 books and only 2 weeks left to get this campaign going, go to Jamaica. But my mom and my dad were very dedicated. I was like, they were like, we're gonna go anyway. We're gonna do this regardless of whether or not you make this, because we know that you're gonna believe in yourself so much more to do this again and again and again, if you know that even if you don't reach your goal, we're still gonna give those books away, and we're not gonna give up on your campaign. So social media allowed for me to showcase that, and then I was lucky enough to be on The Ellen Show and a lot of local Philadelphia news shows, and they were able to support my campaign and talk about, especially Alex Hawley, who's one of the hosts in Philadelphia. She's a black girl. And she got to say that, and she painted her Ariel blanket to make the girl have darker skin, because she really wanted to see herself, and she loved that story. So she wanted that story to reflect her life. And she shared that kind of emotional sentiment with me and with her followers online. And they really connected with what we both had to say. So through the campaign and through social media, I was able to reach so many more people, but in a way that I didn't originally have access to it. My mom and my dad were seriously watching over me and making sure that what I was saying online, or what they were saying online, was accurate, and that they were saying respectful things, and that eventually to train me on my own personal social media to say things that are kind to people and to ignore, not necessarily to ignore, but to not put power into the negative things that people may have to say about my campaign.
All right, so let's go back to the GrassROOTS campaign that your mom started. So how has GrassROOTS impacted your life, and your mom being president, how does that feel?
So just so you guys know, GrassROOTS Community Foundation is a public health and social action organization focused on creating a world where all girls grow up to be healthy women. Right now, sadly, we only have programs in Philadelphia and New Jersey, and we're working on a program in Baltimore, so it's not here in Illinois yet, but if we do get there, I hope to tell you guys about it online. But through the campaign, through that, and through GrassROOTS Community Foundation, there's a camp called Super Camp. And through Super Camp, I had been able to work with a lot of other black girls in the area, and it's a leadership camp. So we learn about 4 principles out of the 72 principles of Ma'at: truth, order, balance, and reciprocity. So we focus on those for each of the 4 weeks, and reciprocity is something that the older girls of middle school age need to focus on and work on and create their own project to give back to their community. So I was lucky enough to be the first person to do this campaign, and we were like, okay, Marley's just gonna do it, whatever happens, it's gonna turn out however, but then it just all blew up. Like we didn't expect for it to be this way, and I had no clue what was going to happen. But through this social action project I did with GrassROOTS, and through my mom being the leader, it kind of it meshed perfectly. Because as I said backstage, I feel like even if it wasn't me, there would have been another girl through GrassROOTS who was able to get this access and able to get this visibility, because we really focus on making sure that it's girls' passions. It's these things that they care about unconditionally. It's the things that when you're having a random conversation, it'll be like, did you know that this and this and this and this? And you're like, wow, they really care. Like they're really here, and they're down for that cause, and they're down for those things. So through GrassROOTS and through my mom being president, we were able to create this kind of perfect time, this perfect circle to show the other girls who are doing social action projects now how they can go about this, and how even though I might be on TV, their work is just important as well.
Wow, that's really awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, so I know that some of your favorite books are Brown Girl Dreaming by Jacqueline Woodson and One Crazy Summer by Rita Williams Garcia. So why do you love these books so much? And I know you have met the authors, but if you met the authors, what did you talk to them about? And
yeah, that's a good question. So when I got to meet Jacqueline Woodson, that was so cool. Like I got to do it luckily through a publishing house, and they had all Rita Williams Garcia and Jacqueline Woodson come together in New York. So it was a school night. So I didn't know who I was gonna meet. I knew I had to go to New York. So I was like, Mom, I really have to go to New York. I still did my homework. And then I walk in and I'm like, Well, that just proves the dramatic effect. That just proves the dramatic effect of literally what happened. But getting to meet them, I wanted to talk to them about why these stories were important, and obviously answering the second part of the question is that I felt like Brown Girl Dreaming shared this raw and this poetic experience. And it was the first book I read that I actually didn't understand at first. That it didn't make sense to me because it's written in verse and it tells of her story of living in the Jim Crow South and also living in Brooklyn. So it's two unique perspectives, and I couldn't always tell because it has an untraditional plot where it switches and switches and switches and talks about so many different people. And I was like, who's Odell? What's happening? And but then I finished it, and I read it, and I enjoyed it, and it made so much more sense to me. And she had similar issues that I know I had and a lot of other girls had, where they didn't feel confident in their words, and they didn't always feel like they could share their opinions, but they kind of grew out of that, and they were able to talk to their sisters or their brothers or their mom or their dad about these experiences and about their emotional connections they had to things that their parents didn't even notice that they cared about these things, but eventually sharing that experience. And One Crazy Summer is really important to me because a lot of the times I complain that even if we do have black girl books, they're either about, the enslavement of Africans or the civil rights movement, but that book takes a twist on the civil rights movement. And it talks about the Black Panther Party, which is something that when we think about civil rights, we don't always think about them, and we don't always talk about how they were actually trying to protect black kids in new ways that we don't even have discussions about in our current society. So in that story, it also shows three girls being together. And it doesn't show that one parent isn't present. It doesn't show that they're always fighting, they hate each other, that they're always going to be mean, malicious girls. But it shows that they have fun together and that they laugh together. And it also is written for a perfect age where it's in between the time where siblings hate each other and where they don't want to talk to each other. They're like, shut you out of my room, like be out of my space. And it shares this experience of sisterhood in a new way that I really enjoyed when I read the book.
Wow. Okay, so I know through your campaign you've become really famous. And I follow you on Instagram, and you have 38.5 thousand followers and like the little blue check next to your name.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about coming from this, not regular, but like normal eighth grade girl to becoming 38.5 thousand followers on Instagram?
Yeah, so it's been really fun, and getting to have that kind of, the check next to my name. It does something, I guess, socially, where people are able to have more access to what I have to say. And I feel like through that, I have to also think about and be more conscious of what I put online and what I say online and who I support online. Because I feel like if, how you can see, I am Marley Dias and this person liked another person's post.
Yeah.
I even though those are the little things, those are things that people are looking out for. So I try to make sure that I am supporting young authors and supporting self-published authors, because then people, when they look at their work, they can use me as not necessarily, kind of a stamp of approval, saying that these books are important and that you can go buy this on Amazon and you can go support their businesses and you can support their stories. So even though the physical number, even if it was 100 or even if it was 2, I would still feel as though having this part and being a part of this campaign is really important, because I get to share my message and hopefully uplift another person's message online. And it creates this really big web of people who believe in cause and believe in diversity and believe in equity in new ways that I wouldn't just see if I was in my hometown.
Nice. And on your Instagram, I saw pictures with Hillary Clinton, Michelle Obama. And so what goes through your mind when you meet all these inspirational women?
The first thing I think of is I'm like, if my shoulders rolled back, because my mom has this thing about my shoulders being rolled back, and I know she's probably staring at it right now because I have these bows. My shoulders really just need to be perfect. So I'm thinking about that a lot, because I know that I have to get the selfie right, and you don't have another shot with the selfie, so I gotta make sure my shoulders are back. But the second thing is, I talk about this in the Activist Toolkit, is kind of your elevator pitch. So your 1 to 2 minute, preferably 1, because a lot of the times you have to get the details out, and it can be tough, but making sure that I'm saying the correct information and also talking about myself and the girls through GrassROOTS. So it's not just, when I get to meet these people, I'm not trying to just think about, can I get the selfie, for the clout or for whatever, but can I actually share what I'm doing and hopefully talk about my best friends who has projects and all these other people I've gotten to meet and say that we really support you, we really love you, I admire you a lot, But remember, I'm just gonna let you know that at GrassROOTS we do this and this and this and this with girls, and this is my mom's card, and yeah, just, you know. But that's what I try to think about, and I try to make sure that I'm not just talking about it, you know, to boast about myself, but to make sure that other girls are able to, or at least be listened to, kind of virtually through me, but be listened to.
Yeah, so have any of these like more recognized people, have they supported your campaign or like in your book?
Mm-hmm. Well, this is actually a new thing, and it's something that we're going to learn more about as the book kind of progresses, and people who just bought it start to finish it and start to learn more. But we will be sending a lot of books out to the people that I've gotten to meet, like Kim Kardashian's daughters, because her daughters are daughters of color, and they are girls of color. So even though people might not necessarily have the most positive things to say about a lot of these celebrities, we send those stories and we send my experiences to them because they have daughters or they have sons who are going to want to do something one day, and they're going to want to, they're not necessarily change the world, but they're going to want to be somebody. They're going to want to make sure that they are not necessarily in the spotlight, but doing something good with their life and doing something that they enjoy. And the book shares that, regardless of whether or not you want to be a politician or an activist or a news anchor, but it shares how you can embrace the things that you love and understand the value in the things that you love. So even though people may think that celebrities are always full and big-headed, a lot of the times there are people who doubt themselves. Even if they're in the spotlight, there are people who don't always believe in themselves. And that book is for everybody, regardless of whether or not you have the blue check mark or you don't. Yeah.
Okay. And so while I was preparing for this interview today, I just happened to get the Girls Life magazine in the mail, and I was just, flipping through it, and then I saw your picture in it for like being the fashion icon. So how do you, how do you care about your fashion, and how is your style different than other girls, and how does representing yourself to the world like swing back to your campaign?
I think, first of all, pull the shoulders back, just gotta remember. But I think that through being able to represent myself through fashion, I show that girls, it's not just girls, but kids, we're allowed to change our minds, and we're allowed to change our opinions. And sometimes you may be like, I really want to wear a dress today, and then the next day I really want to wear pants, and I really want to wear my top 10s. But it just depends. And I feel like style also shows that I can be put together, and that I represent a formality in Black girls, and that we are serious, and we can also have fun at the same time. So even though I have a lot more to say about style in the book, and especially with my hair, I want to show that I have purpose with the way that I dress, and that I'm here not to just necessarily prove to you that I'm important, but to show that I believe in myself, and to show that I put value into what I wear because I feel good in it. And that matters more than whether or not I'm on the fashion police because white doesn't mix with the stripes or whatever. It matters to me how I feel and how I look doing that, and that I'm making sure that people believe that girls like me are dressing well, and that they are showing that they care about who they are and they care about what they represent in new ways that a lot of the time stereotypes don't show that we care, or that we care about what we look like, or that we're dressed or messy or whatever, but showing that I really do put this effort in, and so do other girls like me.
Yeah, so after I read your fashion section, I was like, ooh, I'm going to wear a blazer. And I was like so excited about, ooh, I'm going to wear my blazer. That's how I was like so excited to wear. Okay, sorry. So in your book, you talk about your definition of a boss. So can you just share with the audience what that is?
So this is something that is pretty unique, I feel like, to myself, but it's really about a person who is looking at their goal and looking at these aspirations and things that they care about, and they're going out to achieve it. So even if it's the tiniest things, like making sure that my shoulders are rolled back, and making sure that I have my edges laid, like the little things that you don't even think about. But setting those goals for yourself and achieving them in an effective and timely manner, and also making sure that other girls and other people who have goals, you can help them along the way as you achieve them. So a boss is not necessarily someone who's being like, oh no, make sure to cross your ankles, do this and this and this and this. Like if you don't, here are the consequences. But it's somebody who is achieving their own goals and uplifting people while doing it.
Man. Okay, so what does Black Girl Magic mean to you?
This is really something that I use a lot along with my hashtag, but people see me, they're like, Black Girl Magic. But Jesse Williams said it interestingly, and in a way that I agree, just because we're magic doesn't mean we're not real. So these experiences that we have, and the things that we love, and our triumph and our pain, is something that we need to share as a real experience, and not just the negative parts and the positives. So Black Girl Magic is really important to me, that we are trying to uplift Black girls, but it's also important that we recognize that they are real people too, and that their lives matter just as much as anybody else's.
Nice. So Black Girl Magic, for doing that, you need to be woke, and that's like a lot of things that people have said, and you mentioned that in your book too.
Yeah.
So what does being woke mean to you?
That's actually an interesting thing, because when I was, writing the book, I had already come up with this idea way before I even knew I started the campaign about why was Jasmine like the only person in most of the Disney franchises who actually saw an economic divide but didn't do anything? Like, what was she doing? What was she, like, I felt very, very angry about that. And I wanted to write in the book, kind of create a scale before the term woke was even coined, but to create a scale of looking at Disney princesses and looking at cartoons that we watch and kind of analyzing, in a sense, what they were doing and how they were doing it. So I talk about, Belle and Mulan being very socially conscious people. And I talk about how Ariel and Jasmine, and obviously, Sleeping Beauty, were not very conscious of the things that were happening around them. So I talk about it because I feel like it's important for, even if you're just looking, if you're flipping through the book and you see, you see all these characters, you're going to be drawn to that. And then you're going to actually be able to look and understand, and eventually, if you want to, dissect that information. And even when you're looking at things on TV, be able to think about it a little bit more, like, why are these characters, like, especially the characters that even look like are of color, succumb to the oppression of people that are of different races or different statuses than them? So learning about those little things, and I feel like that chapter and talking about wokeness definitely includes that, and make sure that people are able to watch out for those things and watch out for what they might be, soaking in without even realizing it, and making sure that's a strong thing that kids and parents care about.
Nice. So for younger kids who have ideas just like you, what advice would you give to them to start something of their own?
The biggest thing I'd say is to follow your truth. And again, with the principles of Ma'at, we talk about truth as the first one. And it's something that we start off with the first week of camp, because it's really important that girls establish who they are before they can go out and give back to other people. Because, having this strong forefront and this strong base and this foundation is really important. So I feel like my best advice is to figure out what your truth is, and hopefully tell your parents if you don't know. Because it's important to share that you don't know, and not to create a front that you think you're like, oh, yeah, I like this and this and this. But then eventually, what if your campaign skyrockets? What if you end up having to go this and this and this, and this is something that you don't care about as your passion? This is something that is not true to you. It automatically eliminates this emotional connection that I can create, and a lot of other people can create with their audiences, because they don't really believe in the things that they're saying, and they don't really care about these issues. They care about them to some extent, but that's not something that they have an ever-burning passion for. And I feel like for kids who are looking at these things, it's okay to wait a long time to figure out what you like to do. And if you know what you like to do, share with your parents and share with your caregivers what you do and what you don't like, because it's really important to distinguish those two things, so you never get put in a position where you are not feeling comfortable, where you don't feel safe around these conversations that you're having.
Okay, so thank you for talking with me.
Stand up. Keep the microphone by your mouth. You can hold it.
Marley, why do you love the One Crazy Summer book so much?
I think One Crazy Summer is probably one of my favorite books because there was a lot of fun in it. And as I said before, a lot of the times when I get to see myself, I don't see myself having fun. I don't see myself just enjoying life, and I don't see myself having fun with my mom and my dad and my grandma and my sister and these people that I care about. So one of the reasons I really, really do like One Crazy Summer is I get to see myself having fun and enjoying these really, really special moments all across the country.
Keith, do you have somebody on your side? Otherwise, I have a question right here. Okay?
So when you became famous, did that ever affect your personal life?
I definitely think it did, and I'll dissect this phrase, but in my family we say the forgotten stone will be the head cornerstone. So that basically means that the people that you're not necessarily betting on, or the person that you didn't really think you were cool with, as soon as they get to a point where they are like considered, cool or famous or popular, you care about them all of a sudden. And it especially relates to my parents because they weren't my family was not necessarily betting on them to have a really cool, smart, dope, and then eventually, famous kid. So I feel like when my personal life did change because I saw a lot of people who were trying to, be a part of my circle or be my friend, and I had to detect for that in new ways that I didn't have to before. And it's not necessarily saying that I'm trying to get rid of, fake people, but I'm trying to make sure that I'm not investing my time and investing my energy into people who are not going to give back to me and to people who do not support me in the things that I do.
All right. Keith, you have somebody? Could they stand up? Keep the microphone by your mouth.
Where'd you get all of the books?
So I get my books from a lot of places. I get some from really big publishing companies, so all the places where people make books, they will like to donate them. But originally, it's from people in their homes, people who have these books from their great-great-grandmothers, people who have bought them at Barnes & Nobles and then they decide they're going to send them out. And the reason that people do that is because they feel like they're giving to, a greater purpose. Like they feel like they're doing something to help another person. So we get these books from people who really, really care about diversity and really, really care about making sure that everybody in this room can see themselves in one way or another in the books that they read. So that's where we really get the books from, and we try to get them from educators as well because they have a really, really strong eye for what is good for kids and what stories are really important for them to read right now to make them strong and brave and beautiful and smart.
Okay. Marley, over here. You see me?
How many of the 1,000 books have you read?
Out of all the books I've collected, I'd say I've probably read, because they're children books, so this is a little bit of a little cheap tweak to the question, but I've read probably around 300 because we get a lot of books that are like picture books that I can read whether as soon as they come in, or I can read to other kids at camp. But a lot of the times the books are either adult books or they're books that are really, really long. And it's good that we get this mix so that we can donate them to also adults and to kids.
Okay.
Here's a question over here, Marley.
Yeah, and a quick note, we'll get to the hands, so, and we're just moving all over the auditorium, so we just want to make sure that everybody can have a chance. So you don't have to necessarily keep your hand up the whole time, okay? Go ahead, Keith.
Did you get books only on girls?
Yes. In this case, I did only get books about girls, and especially black girls, but I want to, through this campaign, to make sure that boys and boys of any different race are able to make sure that their stories are told as well. So even though it starts with me, it expands to all of us.
Okay, over here. Stand up.
First, I totally love your hair.
Thank you.
And my question is, if you could live the life of one of the characters from any of the books that you collected, who would it be?
Good question. So I actually have thought about this a little bit, but I feel like this world will be too depressing. So I think I'm going to switch my answer. So I probably want to live in, and this is a weird question because I don't like fantasy very much, but I really, really enjoyed this series called A Caught a Witch, and it's a weird type. It's a weird type of book because the girl in the story has a very type of oddball brain and an oddball personality, which in some ways I have too, and all of us have, but she had special powers, and she had to go to school and work through everyday life and work in a society that was kind of flipped against her in a weird way, but she overcame it. So I feel like getting to meet all of these weird and mythical creatures would be kind of fun. But my second answer to that question is I've also gotten asked what universe you want to live in. And this is a weird one because it has a white boy and his dog as the main character, but I think that if we were actually to look at Charlie Brown and live in that world, we would not like it. It's just bad. I don't feel like it would be fun. But I think of something about that story and something about my mom being a sociologist would find that world very problematic. So in some ways, I kind of want to go in there just to see what it would actually be like. I don't think it would be very fun, but I think it would just be like a weird experiment, if you know what I mean.
Here's a question over here.
Do you put your books in libraries?
Yes, so we donate books to schools and to community centers, so a lot of the books actually end up going back to students, even if they're donated from students. So we try to do that in the same way so that areas in Detroit or in Greece or in Singapore or in Philadelphia or Connecticut all have access to Black girls' stories in their school.
Okay, over here.
How did you get the inspiration of Black girls?
I think this was probably something that I really wanted to pick because I am a Black girl. And I felt like I wanted to start with myself first and start with developing girls like me and their identities and the belief they had in themselves before I could go out and try to help other kids. But as I continue this, I want to make sure that other kids can see themselves and their stories being told as well.
Here's a question here.
Who is your favorite author?
My favorite author of all time is Jacqueline Woodson. She, as I got to meet, my reaction, even though that messed up the mic a little bit, but I'm just gonna do it, less dramatized. But I really had a great experience meeting her, and we call her kind of my book fairy godmother because this whole experience where I had to learn a lot of weird information about the publishing process, she got to walk me through it in a really interesting way as a person who's written 35 books. So she was definitely very helpful to me, and she is one of my favorite people personally out of everyone I've met.
Have you ever been put down by anybody, and did you ever let that get to you?
I think I've had a good experience where my parents never intentionally ever let me hear or see anything negative about my campaign. And that's also something that a lot of parents, they hold back on social media because of that. They don't want their kids to be exposed to that information. But they had a really good kind of filtering system where they would stop all the bad stuff from getting to me. But one of my personal challenges is that I didn't want to tell people kind of this emotional story I had where I didn't feel like I was being told, and there were kids all across my school and all across the country who now did not feel that they were important and felt as though their race didn't matter and that they didn't matter and that their life didn't matter. So I feel like I had to share my story in this emotional way because I was able to have more people connect to my ideas, and that helped me to collect more books and to be able to donate more books.
Here's one.
What are you planning on doing next?
The next thing for me is the 1,000 Black Girl Books app. So we want to have this resource guide, which is www.grassrootscommunityfoundation.org. If you just look up 1,000 Black Girl Books, you'll also see it. So I know that's a tough URL, so I just say that one as well. But through that app, we want to share that list of 1,000 of the books that we've collected so that people will be able to either support these self-published authors and read reviews and have access to the information that we have as a luxury through collecting the books, but also to share that with the other people and the organizations that are surrounding them and how they're trying to promote diversity as well. So we want to create something that's interactive so you can have it on your iPad and on your phone and be able to see these stories and hopefully support their stories.
Okay, right here, question.
Why do you love Sugarplum Ballerinas?
I actually really, really like Sugarplum Ballerinas for 2 reasons. I saw Sister Act and Sister Act 2 when I was getting my hair braided when I was like 7, and I fell in love with it, even though I don't like to sing, so don't ever, ever ask me to sing. But I really, really liked that movie. And then I found out that Whoopi Goldberg had books through one of my best friends because she wanted to be a ballerina when she was younger. And she fell in love with it, and she read them all the time. So sometimes I'd be like, can I borrow this? And then one time I never returned it. So I fell in love with the series, and I became a huge fan. And we actually collect those books, and Whoopi Goldberg lives in my area. So having her be kind of, I'm not going to say in my town, but be a symbol for my community as a successful Black person, a successful Black woman, I really fell in love with that series for those reasons.
Good. Here's a question.
What is your all-time favorite Black girl book that you have collected?
My favorite book that I've collected is Brown Girl Dreaming by Jacqueline Woodson. It shares a story that I feel like I could connect with. If you just switched out the names, it would have been mine. I feel like it could have been mine. So I loved it very much for that reason. And I've gotten to meet a lot of girls who've read it and felt the same way. It's really interesting to see that I wasn't the only person who felt that way. And now being able to elevate and uplift all of those stories and all those girls is really exciting as well.
How long did it take to write your book?
It took about a year and a half, which I feel like is a fairly quick process because all of this stuff has been happening so quickly. And also, it was originally we were talking about a memoir, and I'm like, I'm 13. Like, what am I doing with a memoir? Like, what am I doing? So we wanted to have the book be, a mix of my story and my parents' story, but also to share the stories of why I did this project, and other people in history and currently in society who are doing the same thing.
Keith, question here.
How do you balance your activism with school and other life commitments?
That's a tough question because I feel like through school I've had to prove in a sense that I'm a very reliable and respectful student and a person who's engaged in the school. I am a part of my student council. I am student body president of my school, and it is very tough because a lot of the times people don't understand why I have to leave or why I have to go. But I've been able to develop kind of through my mom also kind of rolling up on my principal and being like, she's gonna miss school, that's all right, that's all right. So it's been that way. But I also have to, in addition to that, talk to my teachers openly, being like, I'm gonna miss school, but you can count on me to do this and this and this. And every time I get a notification from Google Classroom that I have another assignment, it's not always the funnest thing, because I get a little ringer and I'm like, not again. But getting to balance that, I feel like I've been able to develop a situation of understanding, and that helps a lot in reducing the amount of stress I have about school and the amount of stress that rolls over into the campaign.
What is your favorite sport that you like to watch or play?
Can you repeat that?
What is your favorite sport that you like to watch or play?
Okay, so to watch, okay, this is interesting. I'm gonna pretend like I had an injury and that's why I can't swim anymore. I used to be a really good swimmer, but then the campaign started and I wasn't able to swim anymore, but let's pretend it's a shoulder injury. So I hurt my shoulder swimming and I can't swim anymore, but I had a really good time doing that. And I have long shoulders, I have broad shoulders, I have long legs, so it's always been something that I picked up very easily. But I also am interested in fencing. It's weird because one of my old best friends went to school for fencing, and she's really good. Like, it's a tough sport. And even though it's not necessarily really that interesting because it's like, and then it's done. But like getting to watch it in slow motion on YouTube, which is something that I've done many times, too many to admit, is very fun. And it's very fun to watch. And gymnastics, also the strength in those women and being on a tiny beam where I can't even walk in a straight line with my eyes closed, it's very amazing, and it kind of blows my mind every time.
Cool question here, and we do have a fencing club here, by the way. Here's another question.
And since you already wrote a book while you're a teenager, do you want to still write books when you grow up?
I feel like writing a book is really important, and I was lucky enough to be able to talk to a lot of people about this. But I feel like if my story, and I've told my story now, but if my story doesn't need to be told anymore because I've helped more girls tell it already, and I've helped more people be able to have these conversations, I don't feel like a book would be necessary. And I feel like if I really, really feel interested in something, I'm going to pursue it and I'm going to ask for as much help as I can get. But for right now, I want to see the effects of the book, and I want to see what kids are able to do and how kids are going to become upstanders in new ways. And then if that becomes a really successful thing, and I feel like more kids are sharing their mind and speaking their truth, I don't feel like I need to talk anymore. I can just kind of go behind the scenes and be the runner of the show, not necessarily the star. So that's what I really feel right now. And I just want to see how the book changes people's lives, and hopefully it does in a positive way.
If you could go back and have the personal life that you used to have and still be as productive as you are now, would you do it?
I don't think I would. Because I feel like in one way I've always believed everything happens for a reason, even when I keep slouching, again, pull it back up. But everything happens for a reason, and I think that I have this unique experience, and if I put any regret into the things that I do, I feel like if I were to even do it again, I wouldn't feel as good. Because I feel like I have these unique first times for everything. And doing it again, it may affect my emotions and my community and my support system. So I feel like I have to enjoy this unique experience even when the going gets tough, because it's not going to happen for everybody. And I need to inform people about what this is like for me and hopefully help you or all of you to enjoy your own personal experiences.
Marley, Keith ended
Sorry,
up behind
I'm cheating.
me.
Here's a question.
Hi, Molly. How do you spread the word of what you want to change?
I think the biggest thing I do is, this bad boy right here. My phone is a huge influence in what I'm able to do, but I also, I have to be very honest. And honesty is very important, but it can be tough at sometimes. And I have to tell people, I really need money for the campaign. We really need this in order to fly the book, ship the books, do all these things. So I feel like another way I'm able to spread the message even quicker and for it to resonate and stay with people is that I have to be honest about what this is like for me.
How does it feel to go around the world, meeting new people and helping them?
It's very fun, and I got to meet a really awesome family that had been supporting me virtually on Facebook for a long time, and they lived in Singapore. And I went to France for my birthday, and I'm very grateful for that experience because my mom promised me when I was 6 that I was going to go to France for my 13th birthday. And I went, and it was so cool, even though it rained a lot. I felt very disrespected by the rain, but it rained a lot. And getting to meet them, and she and the mom of those 2 beautiful brown girls, she's collected almost every single book that has either a black girl as the main character or a girl with disability as the main character. So she is an avid reader. And I kind of got shown up by her a little bit because she's like, this and this, author and this and this, and I'm like, whoa, I didn't even realize. And she became a new resource for me. And getting to learn about her experiences, trying to help her kids who are, I'm pretty sure half black and half kind of brown and Indian, I'm pretty sure actually, and making sure that they're able to see themselves was a really fun experience. And hopefully connecting with them and making sure that they're able to go back to Singapore or to Washington, D.C., where they're moving, and be able to have a strong sense of identity in who they are and what they can become.
All right, I think we're almost at 7 o'clock, and I just got the sign from Marley's team that we need to move on soon to the photo op. We obviously could answer questions for about another hour, I think. So we'll take one from Keith, and I already told this nice young woman that she could have one, so we'll do the last 2 questions. Sorry to not get to everybody. Go ahead.
How do you recommend that other girls incorporate their interests and passions into the change in the world that they do?
I think the biggest thing, first of all, is educating yourself on the issues in your community. So a lot of the times we see that people are trying to tackle poverty or tackle world hunger or tackle these really big kind of huge social issues that everybody in the world faces. But think about the things that directly affect you. And think about the things that directly affect the people that live within, a couple miles of you. And think about people at your school. So start by and it's tough to research this, especially because sometimes people are not going to want to tell you what's necessarily, wrong with the place. But looking about the things and the problems that you experience, and even those little frustrations where you're like, why are we learning social studies class in this terrible order? Like, why are we doing language arts class in this way? Why am I not able to always raise my hand? Why is the teacher never picking on me? Like, these tiny things that you may not even think of as huge problems probably have really big answers and really big questions that you can pick one of them and try to solve them and try to answer that question. So I think that what you need to do is look at the things that that affect you first before you can go out and try to create solutions.
Okay, last question right here, and then just a reminder, the photo op will be on stage. We're going to move that thing over, we're going to move the furniture, and we're going to file in from the left side. Also, one last thing, please, Marley is such a nice person, but please don't ask her to sign books because she really just does not have the time, and she'll feel bad about having to say no, so I'll say no on her behalf, okay?
How are your glasses a big part of you?
Good question. So actually, my glasses are really important to me, and I feel like there was always kind of this weird thing where people thought glasses weren't cool, but I was like, no, they're pretty cool. I mean, I wear them, they're pretty cool. I mean, look at me. But I love my glasses, and I love that that I'm able to have many different colors, many different shapes and sizes, which reflect myself and reflect people. So I think it matches my personality in a way where it's kind of weird and you kind of like it, but then sometimes they're really annoying. So I think that glasses are a part of who I am, and glasses are really fun. And I've been lucky to be able to meet people who have really cool glasses as well and feel more confident in themselves because they see that I can rock them and that I wear them with pride.